往前坐，
你负责直播，我负责直播。
Okay, so good evening everyone. I'm honored to welcome you to join this seminar. So this seminar is part of a series of lecture events of the MTA program. So usually we'll invite the experts from both academia and the industry to share with us their experience and perspectives on the tourism industry. So today we're honored to have Dr. Paula Osola to be with us. And Dr. Osola is a professor at Caesars College, Switzerland, and she is also an experienced entrepreneur who served as the CEO and the co-founder of La Happy Care. This is a company which has a special focus on the care for the people with dementia. So her research interests also lies in the connecting the long-term care for the elder people with a world of tourism, leisure, and recreation. So today, she will address us on the topic of accessible tourism and tourism for people with dementia. So this is a very important but often overlooked issue on the tourism industry. So let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Osola.
Hello everybody and good evening. My name is Paola Osola and as I was introduced before, I come from Caesars Colleges and today I'm going to talk about accessible tourism and tourism for people with dementia. This is going to be a topic that I really love and you probably understood why, because I'm trying to combine together my academic life together with my practical and entrepreneurial life, and I would like to change the life of the elderly people, or actually I would like, that's my dream, to change the life of the people that are getting old, so not only those that we think are old. Before starting any further into this discussion, I would like to introduce a little bit about myself, or better, I would like to introduce about where I come from, because you might not know where Caesars College is, so it's going to be better if I give you some ideas about it. So we are right in the middle of Europe. And as you can see, we have a very close opportunity to have international settings through which we are at the moment studying the topics under investigation of today. Few information. I come from this, there you don't see, but this campus. I think it's going to be better if I use my fingers. And this is in Brick, where we have the Cesarewitz colleges in Switzerland, and the same campus is also in Le Gouret in Switzerland again. And in this campus we also teach the Culinary Arts Academy courses, and there is the academy there. Together with the Cesarewitz to the Swiss Education Group, which is the group I actually belong in terms of school, we have also other two schools that are the Swiss Hotel Management School in Gand and Lison, and then the HIM Business School in Montfort. Switzerland, I don't know if you know, has a very long history of hospitality. And in today's world, we also understood that if we want to continue making hospitality successful, we cannot only refer our students to apply the concept of hospitality in hotel and restaurant and resorts management, including also bar, restaurant, and all these type of facilities, but we have to make them think outside the box. And one of the things that we try to do to let them understand that they needed to have a broader horizon is the fact that we push them also to understand the possibility of hospitality in the world of sustainable tourism, in the world of wellness and spa, also in theme parks, in franchise business management, and last but not least, but I left as the last one, because this is what we're going to focus attention today, is also senior living management. So where the elderly live, we can bring a lot of contribution in terms of hospitality. And Swiss Education Group, with this 43 years of experience, is actually helping us to shape and give our students the possibility to have a perspective of a dynamic and multifaceted hospitality and tourism perspective in a variety of industry. Because the skills of students that study hospitality are useful everywhere. Actually, we must learn in many businesses how we can be more, how can we better host as well. In particular, the focus we have outside the industry is about luxury brand management, retail and banking, spa and finance and real estate, consulting, but also training. A few days ago, I met one of my former students, and she became a lecturer as well. So we inspire also more than one perspective in our schools. So that's where I come from, and in particular, I'll show you on the map. This is my campus, very close to Italy, where I actually come from, because I have to tell you where I live. And then we have all the other campuses located in the heart of Switzerland, in between lakes and mountains. So we are in the perfect place to host people. So as I said, I teach in Switzerland, I teach in Switzerland's colleges, but I'm from Italy. I'm from a city very close to Milano. You might have, some of you maybe have some experience with the Italian accent, and this is actually visible. Or if it's not the Italian accent, it's my hands that go everywhere. Remember, I'm communicating a lot with them, and at the end of this presentation today, we will understand how important it is to communicate also with the non-verbal communication. So everything is related. So let's start to say a little bit more about myself, even if I don't have too much to say, because he has given a great introduction. So I am a professor at Cesarewitz colleges, and I focus my attention on business sustainability, and in particular business sustainability and innovation. And when I look at innovation, one of my favorite fields is the social innovation. So I would like to become one of the next social entrepreneur, and actually I'm trying with my startup, and this is also what I'm researching. So I have also a small startup that has just started, and we are trying to support the families with the people with dementia, and in particular the so-called caregivers, to get old well while taking care of a person with a very severe disease. Let's get into what we're going to be doing today, because this is what it's important. Today we're going to learn about accessible tourism and how to cope with the inequalities. We're going to familiarize with the tourism for all and also its potential, and we're going to focus the attention on the tourism for people with dementia. And one of the things I would like to leave you today with is some opportunities on reflection on how we as people, future people working in the industry, future people studying the industry, or even future people that have to deal with the disease, know how at least a little bit be able to handle situations like the one we're going to see. So, from where everything starts. For me, the discussion about accessible tourism starts and must be embedded into a concept that today we find sexy: sustainability. Of course, we have been talking about accessible tourism even a little before sustainability became such a phenomenon, although we talk about sustainability since 1987 at least with the Puntland Commission. But I think that today is the right moment to talk about accessibility because companies started to care about sustainability. Before, it was a little bit more complicated, not impossible, but a little bit more complicated. So for me, this discussion must start from sustainability. And we know all very well that sustainability is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their needs. And what is important is what we call the triple bottom line. So the fact that this development should have a long-term vision that tries to balance the economic growth, the social cohesion, and the environmental protection. These three elements that we call the triple bottom line, I think you know, people, planet, and profit, needed to go hand in hand and be mutually supporting one another. Unfortunately, in the recent years, the focus has gone mainly on the economic side and on the planet side. Okay, before it was even much more on the economic side. But I want to look already from the bright side, and we know that when we talk about sustainability, many things about green. And we have forgotten a lot about the people. But also the people are there, and we should be able to bring them back in our discussion. Otherwise, we will continue thinking about saving the world in terms of the environment, but then we might compromise on people, because it happens. Sustainability has trade-off. That's why I decided to bring back the attention with these classes on the side of the social dimension. And today I'm going to focus the attention on the size of the reduction of discrimination and increase of inclusion of the people that have access requirements. And here I would like to ask, if you want also to contribute a little bit to the class, what do you think are the people that have access requirements? People with some form of disabilities. Good. Anybody else? Who else has access requirement? I have these, so you have already got one. So I introduce Bernardo to you. So this is a dog very famous also in Switzerland. It's called San Bernardo. And we have Ulrika. She has a German name, so it's a Swiss name. Which one do you want?
We get the German one.
Perfect. So actually, I have to be precise. Swiss-German name. Because the Swiss people speak Swiss German, not German. Okay, access requirement. People with disabilities. Then we go a little bit more in depth into the disabilities, but for the moment we don't need them. Who else has access requirement?
Older people.
I think you said what I think, but just repeat.
Older people.
Older people. So people that are going through the process of getting older.
Children.
Children.
Patrons.
Wow, now I have a lot of these. So I needed to increase the treasure for out my best friends here. So somebody has children, okay.
Pregnant.
Pregnant women or women that got children and then they have to go around with them. And sometimes they struggle. In fact, we have some toilets, for example, also for families and also for the people with disabilities. Who else could have an access requirement?
Illness people.
Okay, people that have any form of illness, which could be also temporary. It doesn't have to be something that is long. Or somebody that got an injury. Maybe we like doing sports and something happened and now we have an access requirement. Good. Let's try more because where I want to go is going to be even further than that.
Alzheimer.
Okay, people with Alzheimer's disease.
People with cancer.
Sorry?
People with cancer.
People with cancer. Perfect. Let's move out from diseases. Okay? Because we can include them in whatever we say.
People who have language problems and communication.
Okay, some communication problem, like me also here in China. I don't speak Chinese, so I have an access requirement because that's the reality. I don't understand what's written. Thank God that there is translation. I love the apps. But also sensory issue, so people that might be blind or have some sight difficulties, people that might be deaf, or people that don't speak as well. So this is another aspect that is very interesting.
People of other races.
Cultural background.
People with a different cultural background, what did you say?
From other races.
Ah, okay, perfect. Okay, these are access requirements. Hold on, because I will conclude opening us a little bit the perspective even further. So for the next one, we will give the Ulrika and the Bernardo. Check, because I have to go this way. So, talking about accessibility, it's also talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. And in particular, as I said, I want to talk about reduced inequalities as main focus. Although later on, what we are going to see today is also applicable and involving other of these goals. Now, I don't want to give it for granted, so I double check if you know what are these 17 goals. Have you ever heard about the Sustainable Development Goals? I see faces saying yes, okay. So I can go ahead, I just wanted to make sure that... So, we work on this 10th Sustainable Development goal, and the goal in particular that takes into consideration the accessibility is the one that tells us that we need to empower and promote the social, economic, and political inclusion of all, without taking into consideration age, sex, gender, disability, race, ethnicity, origin, religion, economic, or other status. Sorry, I was going a little too fast. Sorry, I get excited with this topic. And here you find people with disabilities. It's from here that we all start talking about accessible tourism. So, you said people with disabilities, with some form of disability, and that's basically where all our discussion starts. And I would like to remind you about the word empower also, not only the promotion of the inclusivity, but also the empowerment. Because most of the time it's where we lack abilities, us. And we don't empower the people that have disabilities because we think we cannot. But that's not true. And what I wanted to underline is the fact that the goal of marketing, but also the goal of marketing within tourism and hospitality, is the one of being able to provide a safe, satisfying, and fulfilling experience for visitors. This is one of the pillars named by the UNEP and the WTO in 2005 within sustainable tourism. And we say and we preach that this needs to be available to all without any form of discrimination. However, we always focus on those people that don't have disabilities most of the time. So for them, we go and we create fulfilling experiences. For the tourists with some form of disabilities, instead, we don't care. Or we do very limited. And here I want to ask you why you think that the majority of the world does very limited for people with some form of disabilities. So what's your opinion? The first one that answers gets one. So why most of the time we fulfill the needs of every tourist exception made the one of these people with disabilities?
The cost of the facilities.
Because of the cost of the facility, this could make sense. I ask you something. What do you imagine we need to have to involve a person with a disability in tourism? So what is the source of the cost? So it costs, it could, everything costs. So we cannot say that it's not. But why we think it's more expensive? So there's two questions, so you can get...
Because it requires a lot of personalization and the customization facility.
Okay, because it requires a lot of customization and personalization. Okay, that's a good thing to consider and taking into consideration. When you talk about the customization and personalization, what do you have in mind? So describe me the picture that you have created in your mind at the moment.
It involves diverse features. It's not like a kind of a streamlined production.
Yeah.
So the merchants will consider the economic benefits to personalize their products
Okay.
to the needs of these little people.
Okay, so of course there might be some need of investment. But the entire world of tourism today is telling us we have to personalize. So also for them, we have to have some costs. But of course, there might be some investments. And especially in some countries more than others, these investments are starting from no basis. Because maybe there is not even a request from the government to do it. In others, it's a must from government. I'm talking about Italy. In Italy, companies cannot start up their hotels or their bars or whatever if we don't have at least a toilet for a person with disability. In other countries, this is not the case. In others, they even want more, so it depends. But what I like about your answer is the fact that we need to personalize, because what we do in Italy is the fact that the law tells us you have to have a toilet for people with disabilities. So you know what we started to do? We started to build toilets larger, okay, that's fine, with some handles that helps them to sit and to stand. But the funny part was that, especially in the very beginning, we had only one standard, higher seats. So instead of having a low toilet, as everywhere else, we decided to have higher seats. Do you know what happened and what the people with disability tell? Yes, but if I am in a wheelchair, how can I climb up to that toilet? Why? Because we design not with the people with dementia with disability taken into consideration, the physical disability taken into consideration. We design, I suppose, with the idea of the elderly people. The elderly people, of course, needs help to stand and to sit. But of course, it's different. So I like this personalization, because one of the claims that the people with a disability say is most of the time, the people that do make the decision, they don't involve us. And by not involving us, they don't even know what we need. And then they end up with what they think, or maybe some of the experts think. But this is a stakeholder involvement. We need to have more than one person working on a project like this. And this could increase the cost, of course it could. But if you want also to think about our world in a different way, and we wanted to have also social justice, maybe we have also to think a little bit above and beyond this cost. And soon we will also see two main reasons why the costs are of course there and we needed to pay, but it's not so much expensive, especially if you start from scratch, to add some simple things that are going to be in our infrastructure needed for the people with disabilities, and all the rest we can add only on demand. And we can ask money also to be paid if this is going to happen, because of course there are the costs, but on the other side we also have the revenue. So we need also to go above and beyond some stigma that we have with the people with disabilities. Which one do you want? Which one?
Thank you.
And since it was a second question, not the same, which one do you want? This one. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So I want to emphasize this aspect of the why we try. So we want to fulfill the experiences of the visitors, but sometimes we don't. So one side, I agree, is the cost. But there is another aspect I would like to see if we can come up with. Why we avoid to design facilities that are more friendly for people with disabilities, why we are not comfortable to talk about disabilities. What's your opinion? Let's start from your experience. Maybe you have some experience. When you meet a person with a form of disability, how do you feel?
Pity.
Sorry? I heard something, but I don't know what it was.
What a pity.
What a pity, okay? Thank you. You want to say something? No.
We just, I think we don't make them think we have discrimination for disabilities.
Okay, we try to avoid to
it.
show that we discriminate, but on the other side there is a little bit of what a pity, right? Okay, what else?
We are different.
Okay, that we are different.
We can sing.
So we can't?
We can come sing.
We could become the same.
We could watch. We could see the work together.
Okay, so potentially we could work together. But I have a question. Do you always feel comfortable? Do you know what to do? No. So I want to go into the reality. Many people don't know what to do. They don't know how to interact. And so maybe they do things to avoid discriminating them because we know that we should not. But sometimes we even do worse than this. I spoke once with a person that was completely blind, so he was blind, this person. And I went into this course that they were organizing about accessible tourism. And this person told me, most of the time I speak with the people, they avoid using words like watch and see. And they try so hard that later on their communication is very complex. And you cannot really get into the communication because we are restraining ourselves not to say something that could offend them. You know what was the answer of this person? I don't care. I know that you're not doing it because you want to offend me if you say or watch. Because most of the time you also use it in a figurative way. So tell me. And don't be embarrassed. And that's something that opened my eyes because I realized that sometimes we create our own perception. Because there is another reason. We don't know. We haven't been told what to do. We don't have any form of training, awareness, and education on this. And I'm not talking about doctor and nurse education. I'm talking about general community education. a little bit that could simplify the life and the interaction with people with disabilities. Now, I don't want to generalize that everybody doesn't feel well when we meet somebody with a disability, but sometimes it's difficult. It's very difficult because we don't know what to do. And then you learn, but you need to be able to get into this perspective. Otherwise, we will continue not learning. And most of the time, and that's the last thing I want to say here, is the fact that we don't involve the people with the disabilities in our discussion. For some reason, we prefer to make our own decision. Now, I'm generalizing here. There are instead some examples of good practices where this involvement exists. And that's what we needed to keep practicing. People with disabilities say, nothing for us without us. That's what we have to keep in mind, so that we don't waste our money in building toilets that the people with disabilities cannot use. Because really, that's something quite awkward. You go into a toilet for people with disabilities and you cannot use it because unless you have a very strong muscle, you cannot even go on it. That's something that we needed to understand, and that's Italian case, so I always say bad thing about my country. I'm kidding, but that's the reality. So, this is where we needed to go, in order to be able to create fulfilling experiences for visitors. But we don't still do it because we haven't seen one aspect. And here is my answer. We don't think that this could help each of us. If we start thinking about accessible tourism, not as a tourism for people with disabilities, but we see it, I'm checking the time because I always go over time, but if we see the needs of these people as our needs also, things will change, and we will design spaces for both of us, people with disability and people without disabilities. And this would solve the problem. And we will not consider this as an additional cost. Because of course personalization is needed for people with disabilities. To be honest, I want a personalized product. Also, and I don't have a disability, or actually, I have one. I will see. Okay, maybe not being blind, but you understand this is also something that could be a disability. We haven't spoken about the allergies. Even the allergies are some access, even people with allergies have access requirements. And we are, yes, you are still young, I am not too young. Probably in 5 to 10 years, but maybe because I don't see from long distance, maybe I'm gonna be luckier. In this period of time, now I see very well, and I read very well from this distance. But soon, I will go around like this because I cannot see it anymore. Yeah. And this happens to everybody. This is an access requirement. And when you walk around the street and you have the heavy luggage because you have just came back from a very amazing trip and you don't have the elevator, you don't have the escalator, and you have to climb the stairs, you have an access requirement. If you are a lazy person and you don't want to take the stairs, you have an access requirement. If you go to a hotel room, you like the fact that the hotel room is bigger, don't you? And if we design some rooms bigger also to help the life of a person with a disability, why not? It helps everybody's life. And we are, especially here, you have the privilege to design from scratch buildings. Why? Not including these opportunities. And then we will never have the need to write on the door that the toilet is for a person with a disability. It's just a bigger toilet. I'll show you some examples later. So what I want to send as a message is the fact that when we think about accessible tourism, we go straight relate to people with disabilities. And we made a small experiment here in the class. That was the first thing that came to our mind. But instead, each of us has this type of access requirement. So, most of the time, I go here and then I go back. We think about people with disabilities. And of course, we must look at them because the numbers are growing. And now we have 1 billion people around the world that experience some form of disability. Some form. It doesn't have to be 100% disabled. And these numbers are going to grow. So we have to wake up and understand. Disabilities are physical, as we probably all think about, sensory, which are those related to the visual, hearing, and speaking disabilities. Then we have the intellectual, which reduce the higher functions of the person, and could affect, the higher mental functions of the people, and could affect mobility, perception, comprehension, language, and other skills. And then we have the mental, where we have the alteration of the cognitive and emotional development process of the people that would also affect the perception of themselves or of the world and the reality. This is, for example, depression and Alzheimer, which is going to be our topic today. I took the WHO definition. I don't fully agree that Alzheimer is a mental issue. I would see more as a cognitive issue, but anyway, that's just terminology. It's important to understand that we have different forms. The one we see most of the time are the physical and the sensory. This one could be seen if you start interacting with a person and you see that maybe there is some difficulties in the mental function, but sometimes we don't even see it. This one, we might not see and recognize it, especially in the beginning. And this is also the most overlooked aspect here. It's difficult if you don't get in touch with somebody to realize if these people have a depression or it has Alzheimer, for example, unless you don't get into a relationship. But this is something we must recognize, because disabilities are growing, all of them. And in particular, all of this is growing even faster because of another phenomenon that is happening in our world. What I'm referring to? So, disabilities are 1 billion people around the world. This number have a destiny. They're going to grow. Why? Any ideas?
Because it's society.
War. Economic inequality.
Oh, okay. Economic, sorry?
Inequality.
Inequality, okay. Income differences, okay.
Differences.
Okay, what else?
Serious aging.
Because people are aging, so she loves the aging people. So, which one do you want? Yeah, because this is the second time that she, because we're aging. That's the main reason. We might be afraid of aging, but that's the reality and we need to cope with it. If you want to live longer and you improve the health system, and the health system is capable to cure us with many diseases, later on it's obvious that we live longer. So the life expectancy at birth is increasing. And this is a phenomenon that is unstoppable. Of course, I had my seniors here. And what I want to show is how people have been increasing, elderly people over 65, since 1960 around the world. This is an emergency. And if people don't understand, they don't don't see the emergency, they don't see the trend, they don't see an opportunity. Because we have to be honest, it's also an opportunity. Of course, there is the cost side, but also there is the revenue side that we can consider. And most of the time, I go back to the PT of before, we sometimes feel ashamed of creating businesses related to people that are getting old or have some disabilities. But that's exactly the same problem of why we don't help. Because we think that the people with disabilities might not have the same availabilities as others. But disabilities are democratic. Everybody gets them, the poor, the middle class, and the rich. So why we all assume that we need only to support? I have an example here just to clarify. I met once a person that ran a small property, nothing very big, in a mountain area in Italy and very close to Switzerland. And once I spoke to this person and we were debating about the possibility of people with disabilities to have private lessons to ski, mountain skiing. And the money that you have to pay to go skiing for one private lesson is around 50 Swiss francs, $50, let's say. So it's something that could be expensive for some people, but it could be nothing for others. And this person said, most of the time here in Italy we do one thing. We think that the people with disability are only one category. And they won't pay any money, we have to pay for them. But he said to me, who told us that that's the way? He said, if they have the chance, they will have the chance to get their ski lesson private. If they have less opportunity, in a group. If they are having troubles, then there are also some supports from government or charity. But if they can pay, well, we cannot. But we have this condition in our mind and we think like that. So what I want to say here is the fact that there is also market opportunity when we think about tourism for people, for accessible tourism. And there is not just a cost for us. And one of these opportunities is the elderly. These are the pyramids around the world. And this was the pyramid in the 1950, 2019, 2100. I don't know how to say that. So we know very well that in the 1950, the population had a completely different scenario. It was the moment of the so-called baby boomers. So the population was very young, and there were a lot of people born during this period of time. However, little by little, society changed, and people started to have less kids, and less kids, and less kids. Ending up with almost less than one kid in some countries. As a consequence of it, and the fact that we have longer life, you see already how in 2019 and also now, the bottom of the pyramid shrinks, and what happened? We started to have people over a certain age. And now this is going to be the trend also for the future. Imagine that these are only the pyramids of the world, that are also taking into consideration outliers, for example, countries in Africa, where this phenomenon hasn't started yet, but it will probably go into this direction as well. If you look at your pyramid, so the Chinese one, or if you look at the Italian one, you understand how scary the situation is. Because instead of being like this, being a pyramid, it's basically becoming in a shape like this on top almost. Now, I don't want to say this, but it's going to be like this. It's not even anymore a pyramid. And it's visible how much people are going to be over 65. So, we must tackle the problem now. And that's why I'm very honored to be here to talk about this, because you're going to be the future of any industry. I don't want to narrow down. And you need to know this, because this is going to be an emergency. So the majority of the toilets around in the future won't be toilets for people without disabilities. Because the majority of the population will be older. And the minority will be younger. Now I'm extreme, I know. I'm trying to make it very, very extreme. But that's what we have to think about. If we have stairs to get inside the toilets, it's difficult to get inside. For each of us. Remember one thing. Each of us has a, or maybe you haven't started, so I need to rephrase. Each of us will start to decline in the body around 30 years old. That's when, for example, the very good sport player perform at their best, and then it's better if they retire. Because they cannot anymore start with having injuries and difficulties and so on. Our brain starts to decline even earlier. Around 23, 24, I don't know exactly for each of us. But this is telling us one thing. We think it's something very far away from us, the decline, but it's so close to us that we need to open our eyes. And these are the reasons. Look at also yours if you have any chance, because this is going to be something that will really make you understand why on earth at 7:20 tonight you're here in the class talking about this. Of course, we also know that others have accessible needs. So I took example of people like us, that I'm sure that once in our life we all had experiences like this, at least this and this. Because maybe for reasons that we obviously know, men cannot get pregnant, but for the others we can. So what I want to tell, it's all about us. All of us have access needs. The sooner we realize it, the better it will be. So before I started to talk about this, how we view, we're going to have it. And this will impact also in hospitality, how we present menus, how we present information. I saw that here you are so much used to it. But I'm not sure that the elderly people easily get used to it. Or maybe, yes, they can use the technology, but maybe it's so small and they cannot even adapt, and it's difficult for them. Then the iPhone, iPhone and other phones brand, knew already about this, and they have the accessibility option. And so you can make it bigger, you can make it whatever. But in Europe, we have this habit to have menus still written so small that only somebody very young can see it. But the reality is the fact that the people that can go to the restaurant are people with money. And who are the people with money? Adults. They are not kids and students. So maybe a little bit bigger size would help, or at least give them the glasses for a while and then they give it back. But no, we don't even think about it. And so you will see around people looking like this because they forgot the glasses at home. I'm thinking about my parents. They have always been doing that. That's why I brought to them a very small one that they can keep in the wallet, and then when it's needed, they can just wear. So it's all about us. And this all about us, it's about this. So accessible tourism. So as a process that will enable people with access requirement to function independently and with equity and dignity. I haven't read on purpose, including mobility, vision, hearing, and so on. Because what I want to emphasize is that each of us needs to be able to have access opportunity. And that's the strongest part and the most difficult part, we need and we deserve to function independently. Why I'm saying it's the strongest one? Because even in the most advanced countries that take seriously the topic of accessibility, people cannot. give you an example, two actually. The first example is UK. So, some time ago, I saw a video about this girl, around 20 years old. She was in a wheelchair. And that night was the first night she decided to go out. She probably could have gone out to a bar far before. But she didn't. And a friend asked her, why you haven't done it before? And she replies, I didn't want to bother you. Because she knew that for her, function independently would have been complicated. And in fact, that night they went out, and that's what happened. So some pubs had the ramp to get in, but she was ringing the bell to call us for the help. Nobody was coming out. And so she was stuck outside. She couldn't get in if she was by herself. Some pubs have ramps, but they are so steep that, of course, if you're not very strong again, you don't go up. So you're not independent. And even if there is the ramp, and in that case there was the ramp, you know what happened next? There was a door. And the door wasn't opening the right side. So like this, it was opening like this. So she needed help because it's not possible to open the door. Then of course, one way or the other, she had the difficulty because if that was the door, like ours, on one side or the other, you have the problem. It should have been an automatic door. No, I don't want to go too much into this direction, but imagine how difficult it is, although there are adjustments. So this function independently is really difficult. But that's where we need to try to go. And I have another example, and then I move on. New line from Italy to Switzerland. Luxurious line on the train. There is this guy with a wheelchair that gets on the train in the station where I live, in the city where I live. No problem. The train is very friendly, he can go in, no problem at all. He gets to Lugano, which is the Swiss country, the Swiss city, no problem at all. He comes back and he decided not to stop in the same train station where he departed. He stopped there and he couldn't get outside the station because the elevator wasn't working. So these are some examples that let you understand that if you are by yourself and you have a disability, physical in this case, it's so much complicated. But I want to ask you here one question to you. Why? What do you think? What are the barriers, the most complicated barriers? Are they physical barriers or the mentality of people, the social side? Let's debate a little bit if you want. Which of the two is the most complicated to break? The physical or the mental? The mental. Physical. Mental? So majority says mental. So the attitude of people. Why? And then we ask also why physical. Why do you think it's more the attitude of people than the physical barriers? Sorry. Wants to go? You said something, but I think it came from here.
I think it's pressure.
It's pressure. Pressure. Okay. Let's move on still. Why attitude? Okay. Suitable?
Maybe it's very difficult to communicate and we don't know what they want. They want to be true.
Okay, it's difficult to communicate. We might not know what they want, especially for some form of disabilities, because If I am in a wheelchair, I can tell you easily what I want, of course, but if I have a mental or, as we said, any other form of disease, this might be difficult. And so this is going to be, for the majority of you, the reason why. Somebody said physical. Why? If, of course, the person would say
Actually, Professor, regarding to this definition of the accessible tourism, I think all the disabilities are included in this definition related to physical disability of the tourists. Because for the tourists with mental disease, I think they don't want to go out. That not because they don't want to go out because they have no ability to go out by themselves. Just as you see that maybe sometimes it is the door, it is the restroom, it is the accessible ways for them, for the people with disabilities, for the old people or with people that are injured. But for the mental people with the disease, maybe they have no opportunities to go out to have some tourism opportunities.
Okay.
So I think all of these may be related to the physical.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the majority relates to the physical because we think that they don't have the others the chance to go outside. So we don't need the other form of. Although, because I'll show you some example where instead there are also people around the world that are capable also to go outside, although they have some mental diseases. But hold on, because this is where I'm getting to. So, summing up, the barriers to accessible tourism are a lot. And one of the main reasons is, of course, the environment, but then there are also the social ones. So when we talk about barriers to make these people function independently, we talk about environmental barriers and social barriers. The environmental barriers are the one related to the infrastructure and the transportation, the buildings, the communication in terms of signage or alternative ways of communicating, because sometimes this is actually needed, such as the braille for the people with sight impairments, and then all the activities involving at the destination. So these are the barriers that we see easily when we move around, and we can easily tick whether there are barriers or there are not. And then there is the social side. Lack of training, lack of awareness, and attitudinal barriers. Chloe told, it wasn't the fact that there were no ramps that really bothered me. It was the fact that people, although they had the ramps, and although they had the taxi equipped, they didn't want to help me. So, no matter what, even if we solve the problem of the infrastructure, we do it at barely minimum. Most of the time, because there is a legal requirement. But then, we don't actually want to care. And probably we have seen already some of the reasons, but for me, and also from the literature, many of these is the lack of training, lack of awareness, and our attitudinal barriers. Because I can tell you that sometimes if there are no stairs, if you want to help, you can help a person with a disability to go upstairs. I'll give you a personal example that my mother used to tell me. I used to have two uncles with a disability. They have a form of disability that I don't go into the details because I don't actually remember. Dystrophy, yes, they have dystrophy. And they used to live into a house where there was no stairs. And the apartment, the people living together in this condo, they didn't want to create an elevator. So they didn't. And so my mother and also some neighbors always took my uncles upstairs with no elevator, but they managed to make it. Then I think there was one of the neighbors that says we can swap the apartments, so they had this kindness. But if you want, you can find a solution. The problem is where you don't want to find a solution. And you don't want to come out and bring the ramp. And unfortunately, it's happening. It's happening a lot. So of course, this needs to be managed, the environmental and the physical side. But then it's not enough, because otherwise we have a beautiful ramp, but the people cannot use it. So we have also to act a lot on the social side. And this form of sharing awareness are important, because in this way we know what we can do. And for those that are still maybe a little bit skeptical about accessibility, I want to say something more. More and more people with disabilities, no matter the disability, are participating more and more frequently in tourism activities. Because in many countries around the world there is a higher level of integration. We started to talk. We started to say that we needed to be able to avoid discrimination, increase inclusion, and so things little by little are improving. And this, of course, made the people more willing to go and travel, and also the industry, seeing the opportunity, be willing to invest in it. Of course, in many cases, more people with disability travel only if they have a physical disability. But there are some cases where we organize also holidays for people with dementia and their caretakers, or people with autism, or other form of disabilities. And autism, for example, is a spectrum. So, the autism, being much more related to the non-mental disability, of course, has different degrees. And there are people that might have autism, but they function almost completely well, without showing any evidence of that autism. Only in particular situations they do. For example, when they are in crowded places. But that's a disability. But why they needed to stay at home? They have the chance to go out. Especially if you are functioning even higher than the normal, let me change than the other people. Because the people with autism, sometimes they even function much higher than the others. So there is more willingness in participating. And when I'm talking about tourism and activities related to leisure, I'm talking even about leisure through sports and extreme sports. They can do bungee jumping, they can do rafting, they can do whatever. But we think they cannot. However, if we understand this, we will be able to be the one that leverage a target market that is very powerful. Although it might require cost, on the other side, they are the best tourists ever. Because they are the tourists that are high spenders, especially if you consider the elderly, around the world, so this is much more general. They travel off-season because they don't have work commitment, and they travel for longer period of time because they don't have work commitment again. So if you multiply these three elements, you understand already that there is an opportunity. We have to see what will happen after the pension crisis, because that's also another reality. But for the moment, the so-called double income no kids, that are the majority of the seniors that might have some form of disability, have these characteristics. And then they are very loyal. That's the bingo of tourism, bingo of marketing, because Kotler, the guru of marketing, said to us, we needed to create value for people in order to be able to get value for our company. And this value must be long-lasting, and a loyal customer is a long-lasting revenue. The people with disability have these characteristics, and they go back to the same places because they don't want to have the risk of not being able to function independently anymore. So they prefer to go where they found themselves having a good experience. That's the description of the best tourist. And I want to say something more. people with disability that can travel by themselves because of the fact that we haven't been able to fully give them the independent functioning. So the average is to travel with other 2 people. And so the same amount of money is spent twice or even 3 times. So there is an opportunity. But of course, the attitude must change because otherwise it's going to be difficult. The attitude must change from our perspective as industry. And of course, I wish also that the common people, the community change this attitude. But it's more complicated. So we need to start doing it to be the role models also for our guests. But as I said, again, we are afraid, we don't want to spend money. We have many reasons for not doing that. But I hope this is starting to create a spark in our mind to change our course of action. I'll give you 2 examples about the fact that sometimes companies are not capable to manage this situation. Winter last year, very famous hotel in one of the Italian destinations where people go skiing. There was a person with some intellectual disabilities. This was a kid that was going out with the parents and they were going to have dinner in a restaurant. At one point, the owners of the restaurant went to them and told them, "Could you please go to the other room? We will offer you a private room larger to have the dinner with all the calm and relaxation there." They went and approached them because other clients were lamenting about the fact that this person was too noisy. In this case, the customer, of course, wanted to have a fulfilling experience, and they were disturbed by the person that was too noisy. And the immediate reaction of the industry was, so the person from the industry was, "I'll give you another place." So I hired you. That was basically what the family read between the lines. And then they say, "Why? We have to." And they left the hotel or the restaurant, I don't remember. It's tricky. And it's tricky much more if you consider the mental and the intellectual diseases. But this could give us something to reflect upon. I don't want to tell you what was the right decision. I'm not to take in that condition. I'm not a decision maker, I'm not the person in that condition. But maybe we have to think about how we would react to be ready to these situations, because it could happen also to our businesses. And we have to have strategy there on how we want to consider this aspect. Because accessible tourism requires a process that is strategically designed. It's not something that we invent from one day to the other. And it needs to talk about, people need to talk about this more. So these people are willing to go. We have seen the aspect of the increasing numbers, and we also saw that there is a trend of the aging. Other people could benefit, so accessible tourism benefits all. But there are barriers, and we have also understood this. If we want to overcome the barrier and try to be able to establish more accessible opportunities in a strategically developed process, remember this, so you don't want to be caught like the people in that restaurant that had to take a decision on spot instead of a strategic decision. You have to think about that as any process, the accessibility process starts with measuring and monitoring the accessibility of a place. So we need to know how a place is accessible or is not accessible before making any decision. And when I'm talking about a place, I'm talking about how the environment is accessible or not, and how the social aspects, so the people that are there are ready or not for accessibility. Because you cannot give it for granted that if you change the environment, everything will go smooth. truth, because I proved you that the majority of the time, it doesn't. Because of people. So you need a process and monitor. And if you don't want to measure and monitor on people, you have to train them. So you are sure? No, sure is too much. You are much more confident that these people know about what's happening. But after monitoring, we have to plan strategically what we want to do. We cannot become from 0 to 100% accessible in a second. It's even impossible. Let's be realistic. And it's impossible because of the fact that there is personalization, and she spotted in the very beginning. Too much personalization, sometimes we cannot, so somebody will be not happy. But it's in any business, the customer, not all the customer happy. But you have to plan and decide from where to start, and then act. Monitoring is much easier than what you think. So you don't need to study rocket science, but you simply need to identify a list of indicators that you want to monitor according to what you are monitoring. So if it's the accessibility of a destination, or it's the accessibility of a hotel, a restaurant, and so on. And you can simply give a score to the accessibility. Try to figure out what is the result, and then decide where to act firstly, according to your goal. And here I chose on purpose these indicators because I have a long list that I took from the literature. But I chose on purpose aspects that, at least in the very beginning, are not related to disabilities. Just to underline once again that the disabilities are not only the only aspect to consider within accessible tourism. So I did it for a reason. The first one is multi-language information on road signs. Very beginning, somebody said sometimes we have difficulties in communicating. So people have difficulties in communicating need some help. No matter it's a sensory problem or a foreigner. The multi-language information are an example of accessibility. Accessible tourism is for all. Another aspect that I found interesting is also providing information that are easy and non-complex to understand. Because not everybody has the same level of are literate at the same level. So if you use too advanced language, we are excluding somebody. If you use simpler language, you don't exclude anybody. And the ones that are highly literate, they will understand. I don't think they're going to be offended by that. Okay, depends on which level we're talking about. Budget tourism is like that. And then, being able to provide information in many different ways, including icons and other simple instruction. If you move around, especially when you go to a foreign country, you need to have the information in many different ways. And if there is no English, for example, as in many parts of the world there is no English, at least an icon helps. We all know where toilets are. Why? Because there is an icon that tells us that there is a toilet. So no matter you are from here, China, you are from Italy, you are from Swiss, you are from the UK, you are from wherever in the world you want, you understand. That's accessibility. And it's not only helping the people with disabilities, but of course it's going to be helping also them. Everybody. Then there are a list. It's very long, so I don't go through all of them. And the example of the people that are getting old and they don't see very well from short distance is, for example, the eligibility of the essential information. So according to what we have to monitor, we tick boxes. I did here you see from not available to very good, just to have a big variety of results. Because if you go yes, no, it's very limited. So here instead you can give hardly. Here there are others. For example, providing right information for people that are blind, different choices to access the location. So not only the stairs. You can give elevator, escalator, lifts, and this helps each of us. Going around the city today, I have experienced stairs, elevators, pathways, and lifts. Sorry, escalator. And these simplify my life. And if I go to a toilet which is bigger, I'm happier because I can move easily. So these are elements to consider. So some of these are the indicators to measure. Then of course you need to choose according to what you have to do. After that, you can plan. And I'm bringing to the attention today the example of a hotel chain called Scandic. Actually, I'll go before to the picture. Scandic Hotel is well known in the Scandinavian countries in Europe, so Denmark, Finland, Sweden, and Norway, and also Germany now, even if it's not belonging to the Scandinavian country, as being one of those hotels that fully understood the importance of being accessible. All their rooms are accessible at some extent. The new one must be fully accessible. So when they build the new places, they take into consideration more indicators. When they have already a building and they have to adapt, maybe they cannot make all changes, but they try to do their best. Especially in Europe, we have one problem. We have protected buildings. We cannot build them all the time from scratch, because we cannot, for example, get rid of them and then rebuild. Or there is even no space. So our cities are super small, so we have to also look at this perspective. And so sometimes we cannot make changes. There is a situation where restaurants used to have a toilet downstairs, and the toilet will really stay downstairs because they go in the exception. But whenever you start from scratch, Scandic and also many buildings today around Europe are built to be accessible. So no matter you have to pay more or not, maybe it's even a legal requirement. And the Scandic Hotel is a normal hotel. It's not an adapted hotel that maybe looks like an hospital. This is a regular room. So forget about this for a second. But this is a room that is normal. It doesn't have any adaptation. Do you see any adaptation? Instead, in our mind, there is always the hospital style for people with disabilities. Because they need a bed that helps them to stand. This is a bed that is adjustable, but it's not like the one of a hospital. But in our mind, that goes there. These are the hangers. Design hangers, because they are pretty, and it's about taste, but they are design. And these are hangers that can be used for people with no disabilities, so they can stand easily up here, and down here, people with wheelchairs. But even kids, somebody in the beginning said children have access needs. Or even people that are not very tall, like me. So it's helping the life of everybody. Then the perspective is not so good, but they have enough space to get in with a wheelchair easily. And so on. And then, when there is a person with a disability that requires, they adapt. They don't build everything for them already. They do what is simplifying the life of everybody, and they design the room like this. And then if the person needs something like this to stand, because maybe the person is heavy or for whatever reason, they bring to the room. And when they clean the room, they take it away. So, we all think that we have to make so much changes. But in the reality, they are much more limited than what we think. And Scandic was so smart and accessibility not as an exception. They started to consider it as a competitive advantage. And this was. Because people with disabilities know that if they have to go around Scandinavian countries, they can book a Scandi hotel. There is an example on the website about even a basketball team that was in Frankfurt, not in the Scandinavian countries, but in Germany, in Frankfurt for some games, I don't remember exactly what it was. And they have been having difficulties in finding rooms around the city with accessible spaces. Because of course, by the law, we have limited numbers that we are obliged to have. And they found Scandic. So the entire team stayed at Scandic for how long they had to stay there. So they had a fully booked facility for a long period, because it was a long competition in some weeks. They had been chosen for this. But if you are a person that doesn't have any disability, you don't even realize it. And actually you would say, oh, how much comfortable it is. That's how they act. And as I said, they also have, I took some example from their documents. They also have some indication on how to build more sustainably. And as I said before, they divide them into mandatory, and other indicators are when reconstruction in the new buildings. So for the lift, for example, what is mandatory? We need to clear direction to the wheelchair accessible lift. So they need to tell them where it is. And they needed to have the lift button inside and outside reachable from a wheelchair. They don't have as compulsory for the accessibility of lifts for people with wheelchair the push plate to open the door if it's not automatic. They don't have compulsory the lift buttons and the buttons panels tactile. They don't have compulsory the tactile buttons in each lift if it's not new. They don't have as compulsory the voice announcements of the floor and the fact that the lift is approaching and going up and down. And they don't have as compulsory the mirror inside. Why? Because this requires them to have new lifts. And sometimes they don't want, they cannot, they don't have resources, it's not planned to have new lifts. So only when they build from scratch, then they can have it, or when they have to change them. But if it's already there, you cannot do so many changes, and so for this, they have a little bit more tendency to be flexible. But if you must have it. And they have many guidelines, so if you are interested, if you go online, they have these clear standards available for everybody. You simply have to look a little bit, but it's on their official website. Easy accessible, so you don't have to have problems. And then they have others, so I cannot go into all of them because it's going to be taking too much time. I'll just give you the example of the guest toilets. In this case, they needed to have a sign where the accessible toilets are located, so you simply have to have a signal. They needed to have doors that are with at least 800 millimeters free clearance, so it means that they need to be at least 800 millimeters. Then you need to pay attention with the width of, if it's possible, they can also have a little bit larger one. Rail on the inside of the door and under the handle. Lock with handles, then there are this explanation we don't understand. No pressure or low pressure adapted for easy access. Toilets. So the must are the signs, the door width, and the rail on inside on the door and under the handle, and then the treasure that should not exist. So it means no stairs. And I have to be honest, that this is important. In my city, we organize a festival called Alzheimer Fest. So now I get into the topic little by little, but I needed this. And in this Alzheimer Fest, who's going out and come to these places are the elderly people. So maybe it's not a traveling experience, but it's a leisure experience. They come to sing, to listen to the music, to dance, and they have cognitive disorders, so they have mental diseases. And one day, we recently had this event, it was on the 15th of September. We got a request. There was a mother that wanted to come with the kid that didn't have dementia, of course, but he had other type of disabilities. And she wanted so strongly to come and visit, and she asked us, I have this big wheelchair, is the space accessible? And so we went to measure everything, and we managed to have the person coming. But we had really to pay attention to many details for the personalization. But they came. And also the elderly people that are in a wheelchair and have cognitive impairments, they go out. We add them. And if this is happening in Italy today, probably it's going to be happening also in other parts of the world soon. So we need also to think that sometimes somebody goes out. I know it's a lot related also to our societies, because in Italy for a very long period of time people with disability couldn't go out because it was, we tended to hide them as much as possible. But now things are changing, and so some are going out. And so we need to take this aspect into consideration. In that case, we manage, we have everything, we get the information, that's the most important thing that they need, then they can make a decision. And then, in this case, they plan and then they act as they do service. One of the concepts very important when we act, I don't go in depth, but I just wanted to send out the message, is the concept of universal design. So when we design environments that can be assessed, understood, and used by anybody to the greatest extent as possible. I'm not saying 100% because I told you I don't trust people that tell me that they are 100% sustainable and 100% accessible. But also the Disability Act in 2005 didn't consider it as 100%. In the most independent and natural manner possible, they want to be independent, the widest possible range of solutions without the need of adaptation, modification, assisted devices, or specialized solution. Now, the last, for me, is a little bit complex because we have so many disabilities that it's difficult to avoid any adaptation. But at least having a standard, sorry to say standard, but then adapting whenever it's needed, that's what we have to do. And one thing I want to tell you is the fact that sometimes we consider it costly. But sometimes the people with disability don't want you to be accessible fully. But they simply want to know the information about how much you are accessible, to make an aware decision and bring whatever they need. So these are some things that should trigger our mind. And if you're still thinking that this is not happening, I have two examples of organizations that organize holidays for people with disabilities. This was one of the best startups according to the UNWTO a few years ago, We Are the World. They organize holidays for people with disabilities in every kind of settings, and also internationally, because if you look at there is also ancient Greece that can be visited. And it has become very famous. It's a booking system, but it specializes on people with disabilities. Similar, Village for All, that does a very closer service in Italy and Switzerland, because you can also go out. So people with disabilities are going out, and there is potential in the market. So if there is a travel agency organizing the holidays, of course we needed to think about this also for our businesses, because they might come to our business. Now, today we cannot talk about all the disabilities, and I think it's kind of impossible, but I want to talk about the cognitive disabilities and one of the seniors, because these are going to become the reality in many situations. So that's why I selected for our last half an hour the topic of dementia. So, my warning is be careful, disabilities are not only physical, and there are also people with cognitive impairments that want to go out, or at least the caregivers want to go out with them. And so, we need to consider also the people with cognitive impairments that need attention. And here comes the word Alzheimer. What is Alzheimer? What do you know? Or what is dementia? Because you can also decide to talk about the syndrome. I phrase it differently. What happens to a person with Alzheimer?
Doesn't remember anything.
Okay. A person with Alzheimer's disease has a short memory difficulty. Unfortunately, we all know the memory loss for the short term, but in the reality, a person with a cognitive impairment deteriorates more than the memory. Because a person with Alzheimer has a cognitive impairment, so a difficulty in processing the thoughts. This difficulty of processing the thoughts compromises the memory, the short-term memory. But as time goes by in the disease, a disease that on average lasts around 10 years, so it's not just a few seconds, and for which there is no cure so far. As time goes by, the people lose also the procedural memory, which means they don't know anymore how to eat, how to dress, how to wash, and they don't even understand, they don't know why they have to do such things. That is going to be very invasive, especially having a shower when you're not capable to do it anymore. And the people don't want this type of treatment. Many people with dementia, little by little, lose even the ability to swallow the food. Lose a little by little the ability to walk. Because it's so much the damage in the brain. That's why I don't like to call it mental. It's a brain disease. So much is the brain damage that of course they cannot do stuff anymore. So they are almost fully dependent by others. Or not in the beginning. I want to show you quickly a video for this reason. And so they have difficulties. But these difficulties, most of the time, although for a very short period of time, they can be put aside to make them live a good quality of life still, no matter the disease. And this happens also for the people that are caring for them. People with dementia especially have the chance to enjoy activities such as art, music, dancing, singing. Why we have to take these rights from them? But most of the time we do. We do think that a person with the dementia is not capable to do anything else in their life. So they have to stay home, in front of a television, most of the time. And the problem is that as the disease goes by, the less and less they understand what the television says to them. They don't understand the words anymore, but they understand the emotions. So imagine that they have seen something very strong on the television. Negative emotion will stand. And then the caregiver in the evening asks himself or herself, why this person is not sleeping? Maybe because there is anxiety going on. Because she saw something that she couldn't understand with the words, as we all do, but had a very strong impact on the emotion side. And of course, it's anxious. Bringing the people outside whenever it's possible is beneficial. And that's why I'm here to talk about how we can organize holidays for people with dementia and caregivers, or even how can bring them out into bar, restaurants, and so on. Or bring back to nature. They enjoy the nature, they enjoy the pets also. So make them live. Living in a different way from what we think, okay, it's fine, but still live. Otherwise, they're going to be entrapped in their houses, and together with them, somebody from the family is going to be entrapped in the house. There are many women, in particular, that even lose their job to take care of a person with a disability, and in particular, with dementia. But most of the time, this happens because of the fact that the people are so much in difficulty that they develop burnout even. And then they cannot handle too many sides of their life: job, family, parents. And so of course they get depressed, anxiety, and some of them cannot make it anymore. There is too much to do, and they quit. But if we are able and capable to keep the people with dementia in a good quality of life, we will reduce the anxiety. There are studies that show how good they are when they have pleasure activities. They will never remember, so I don't want to create false expectations. But they will remember the way they will never remember the way we think is the meaning of remember, but they remember the emotions. They say, of course, because sometimes it's difficult to get into this direction, but they realize it with studies and studies and studies in medicine and so on, that the person with dementia forgets stuff, but remembers how you make the person feel. And I can tell you this also from experience. We have a small non-profit organization where I live, and every day there are 2 hours of leisure activities for the people with dementia. The caregivers bring them, and they just do art, they do gym, do all these type of things. They don't remember the names of the volunteers there, but they remember that that's a place where they enjoy, and the emotions are good. In fact, there are many examples also of Alzheimer cafes, where the people go into bars, but bars, I'm talking about bars, not fake places, and they have their opportunity to stay with other people, and they enjoy and they like it until they can, because of course at one point in the disease they cannot go on. So we needed to change this sad faces, and we needed to create instead, sorry, I'm going into the wrong direction. We needed to create happy faces. Like this couple. Let's hope everything works well. I'll just give you a few seconds of this video, which is quite interesting.
The husband and wife was, I'm having to look after her now. We're both getting on a little bit, but when we came on the first one, this is now the second one we've been on. It gave me a holiday as well as Barbara. And when I went home, I'd had a holiday. And it's only thanks to Dementia Adventure.
Dementia Adventure has a simple mission to support people with dementia to get outdoors, to get into nature, to continue to enjoy the pastimes and the activities that they love, and to help them retain a sense of adventure in their lives.
People with dementia should be able to still go on holiday. With my assistance and through volunteers, we can take you anywhere, anywhere you like.
Travel arrangements, tickets, accommodation and itinerary are arranged for you, and each couple is supported by a trained Dementia Adventure team member throughout the break. The difference between what we do and a normal holiday is that we provide lots of support for people of all levels of ability, of all ages, on all sorts of holidays.
are at risk of not getting access to and easy access to the outdoor environments that most of us take for granted. And so we adopt a solutions-focused approach primarily delivered through training and support programs that enable families, that enable professional carers and staff and volunteers in all sorts of organisations to think about how they might enable people with dementia to get outdoors confidently and happily.
People living with dementia often have very narrow lives. Risk is something that's completely taken out of the picture. And carers are often looking at the safety of the person with dementia, but actually not looking at the adventures and the exciting things that we can do in life. And that's really what we are advocating along with our training and as well with our holidays. We're always looking at the individual. And risk is really relative to an individual. We know we might be involved with taking someone whitewater rafting, as we did with two ladies up in Scotland because that was on their bucket list. But it might be that it's a walk in the park, it might be something in their garden. It's really individual to that person.
So, people with dementia and their caregivers go on a holiday. Few days, one day, few hours. Okay, maybe we don't call it anymore a holiday, of course, because there's going to be a wrong definition, but they can do trips. They can enjoy a few moments of leisure. Although they have what the WHO consider a mental disease. So they go out. And the Dementia Venture is a business enterprise, it's a social enterprise that organizes holidays to put these people next to nature, which is something that they benefit from. This is the website of the Dementia Venture. Here they organize training and consultancy and then supported adventures. What is interesting is the personalization and is the fact that sometimes we think it's risky, but it's all about the individual. And it's all about caring. This is another example. This is Alzheimer's Switzerland, and they also have 20 years or less of experience in organizing holidays with people with dementia. Different types. The most successful one is the one they organize when they go to the seaside. And they go to the seaside with the couple. They also told me that they tried to have only people with dementia going on holiday, especially the one with the early stages of dementia, but they told me that it wasn't so much successful. So the people with dementia can go out. And before I got a stimulant, I would like to tell you something more. No, it's the other side. Something more about here. Something more about this. Can people with dementia go on a holiday? The answer, of course, we understood is yes. It depends on the different stage. If we have to do research or interact with people with dementia, can we speak with the people with dementia? And I think this video will tell you a little bit about this. It's with the Italian subtitle, please disregard them. I couldn't find one video to upload in the PowerPoint without, so that's what I had, so I had to play with my resources. So I want to show you this video.
My name is Richard and I have Alzheimer's disease. Well, I am not the voice of Alzheimer's. I am this Richard Taylor who happens to have that diagnosis.
Can you listen? It hasn't started yet. So.
Because this is my new purpose in life. It's to say that people with dementia are whole people and should be treated as whole people. I am a whole person, Dana. I am not half empty. I am not half full. I am not declining. I am a person. Now, I may be a different person slightly than I was yesterday, but I am still a whole person. See, we need enablers, not disablers. And most organizational programs are focused, I believe, at disabling us. If you see us making a mistake or an error, you take it away from us. I watched a dad try to fill out a form, and his son was watching. Dad had Alzheimer's. And he put down the wrong phone number and he couldn't remember his address. So the son walked up and gently took the form out of his dad's hand. He says, "Here, Dad, let me help." And he erased the phone number right in front of his dad. Put the right phone number in, filled out the address, and gave it back to his dad and said, "Here, Dad, I love you." Now that was a loving gesture from the son's perspective. But what did it tell the dad? You're not competent.
Not competent anymore.
And by the way, Dad, you'll never have to fill out a form the rest of your life. We'll take care of all that for you. Well, there goes another piece of my life. I will end up half empty. People keep disabling. But the core issue is we're still whole people. We still have a right to personal dignity. Now you can enable us to hang on to that dignity. Also,
So, what he wants to say, he has Alzheimer, is in the early stage. You probably would have never known that this person had Alzheimer. But the society, when you label them, they made them more disabled than what they actually are. And he's asking us not to do it whenever it's possible. Richard passed away, so he's not here anymore, but he was very active in trying to advocate for the rights of people with disabilities. And in particular with dementia in this case. So what I want to tell you is that these people are more than their diseases, and these people are more than caregivers, so go back to the family members. And so they want to go on a holiday. And these new people are also increasing in number. 47 million in 2015, 132 million in 2015. Every 3 seconds there is a diagnosis. And 75% is not written of the people with dementia, they don't even know that they have. But they must know it, because the more we know, the earlier we know, the more the conditions of a good quality of life for a person with dementia we can guarantee, and this is going to have a better impact on who cares for them. Because at the end, they're going to be the ones suffering. Because at one point, Richard will never remember that he has Alzheimer. So for him, he's going to start living in his own world, where he thinks he's younger. He thinks that the people around him, the wife, is the mother and not anymore the wife. But the others see the reality. See what's happening. So we need to change this. We have to guarantee quality of life so that everybody is more relaxed, is calmer, is enjoyable. And you have seen the smiles. And they are possible. They are not utopia. So they can be tourists. They can like farmhouses. They can like the nature. And there are companies and no-profit organizations doing this. Which means they might be our guest also, if you're going to run any business that involves people. No matter if it is hospitality related, tourism related, senior living, you will have potentially some people with dementia. Especially when they don't even know that they have it. 75% they don't know. And maybe they are going through a normal life without even realize it. There is a movie called Still Alice, where there is a professor, I don't remember if it was Harvard or Columbia University, and she got young dementia. She's around 50 years old, so you don't have to think that it's only about the elderly. And she realized it while living her life. When she started getting lost and not knowing where she was. So these people could come at our reception and feel lost. And you need to know a little bit how to react to these conditions. Maybe you have a person of a certain age, I increase the age just because I want to make an example, that comes to your reception. You see clearly that this person is over 85. And you know that she came with the with the husband. Okay? He comes to you and asks, where is my dad? If you count, and you know that the dad is not there, there is the husband, you know that this person cannot have a dad there, because probably the dad passed away. And you cannot tell this person, look, you are here with your husband. Because her reality is she's there with the father. And you cannot think that she can enter your world. It's you that you have to go in their world. And if you are in the reception and you are not prepared, you might fail in doing this. Because it's, oh my God, what's happening? I don't know what to do. But it could happen. So here the possibilities are mainly two. One, it says, just sit, your father is coming. It's a white lie. It works most of the time, because later on you distract the person and you can calm the person. Or you can start talking about the father. You must miss your father. Because the fact that this person is looking for the father could also ask for emotional support. But sometimes we are afraid of asking, how are you doing? And how is your father? Or you must miss your father. Because we are afraid of the replies. And we cannot handle them. Again, it's us that we have the difficulty. But in these cases, we cannot think these people can come back to the world we know. It's us that we have to go inside. So, being able to get into their world is one of the key elements to create a great experience. And the great experience for a person with dementia is not by providing this. You don't have to become doctors or nurses. You have to do this, caring. That's the only thing. And going back to the real bottom line of hospitality, care about customers. Most of the time we see them as numbers. So whatever I'm talking about here for a person with dementia, it's valid for everyone. Apart from the fact that you needed to enter their world, and maybe you have to avoid a few words, few things. But the rest is, go here instead. To be motivated to care about the other. And that's also something that you have to do for everybody. You need to be responsive, which means be willing to establish a relationship with the guest. Respect the guest as much as you can, although it has a disability. And behave with authenticity. That's my best. That's what I was saying before. I'm using a lot of gestures. Because I know that the gestures, most of the time, are telling much more than what I'm saying. I realize this more than ever while staying here. I don't understand any word of Chinese. But I understand what the people are trying to say by listening to their tone and looking at the body language. It's amazing. But that's how we work. And with a person with dementia, this is even more important. Because they don't understand what we say too much. But they understand our paraverbal, the tone, that is a paraverbal, how fast we speak. Because this is telling us how nervous we are, or how excited we are. So I'm expressing, you see? And our nonverbal communication. If you are in front of a person with dementia, imagine that I have somebody here, and you want to establish a relationship, even better. Somebody sat down here. You needed to just do like this, look the person in the eyes, and be in a relationship, and talk. But if you are like this, but your body is already saying, I have to stand because I need to leave, they understand. because my body language is telling them a lot. It's like when you are in a conversation with somebody, but your body is already pointing the door. I want to leave. But no, you have to behave authentically. I know it takes time, and sometimes in the industry we don't have the time. But that's important. You have to pay attention, also to the silence, welcome the people without judgment, and put yourself in their feet. That person at the reception that is looking for the father is shocked because he cannot or she cannot find the father. So imagine what is the sensation. You lost somebody that you love. Put yourself in their feet instead of saying, no, your father is not here. And use adequate language. There's not much to know about the adequate language. So use verbal and non-verbal language. Use a soft tone. Speak clearly. Short sentences. One concept per time. Make breaks without talking. And wait for the answer. Because you want the people to talk. Very often, a person with dementia doesn't talk anymore, not because he's not capable to do it, but because we didn't give the time to this person to do so. Because of the fact that we stopped the person from talking because she was talking no sense. But who cares? Let the person talk. It's not harming anybody. Or you took the place of this person because she couldn't find the word and you finished the sentence. You used two complex sentences and so they couldn't understand. Or, still not understanding, you used, and these are not, ironic sentences and metaphors or pronouns. These people struggle if we have so many things to process. So, tell the name of what you want to say. Very important. Don't judge and don't correct. That's what Richard told us. He said, the father was filling a form. He put the wrong number. Who cares? Until it's not harming, who cares? She could have ended in the thing for the check-in. And when they left, the son could have come back and tell you, sorry, there was a mistake. But you don't tell in their face that was wrong. And don't ask questions. Hold on, I left all the time as last. Don't ask a question that could embarrass the person or frustrate the person. It's no sense to talk about what's your name, where do you come from, how old you are, what did you eat before. They don't remember. Ask them, how do you do it? If you want to know more about what we are talking about, check the dementia-friendly communities. So communities that try to help to have more friendly communities for people with dementia and their caregivers. Where I live, Gavirate, it's one of the dementia-friendly communities in Italy. We have many. We are growing and always having more and more. It's working to become dementia-friendly because the work is never finished. And I love it because you can never say that you're 100% accessible. You are going in that direction, working on it. And what I'm trying to do now is to write guidelines for tourism and hospitality academia that could help these people to have a good life and more practitioners also to know about it. This is the last thing I wanted to say to you. Richard, the guy we have seen before, told us in the video, but we haven't done so much in that Alzheimer is called the long goodbye. Now what I want you to remember is this is mine. This is the festival I was talking about before. So don't say goodbye, say hello. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Keep up down, but you can take them.
Okay. So the next part is the Q&A session, but due to the time constraints, so we only have the opportunity for 2 questions. Okay, who's got the first question?
Okay, go.
Actually, I prepared 1 question when I came here, but I ended up with 3 or 4. It's all thanks to your excellent speech and very humble.
Sorry, I speak too much.
My question was actually the first question. Sorry, I can only ask 1. So the question was that I can give. I have a relative who suffered from mental. Actually, it was this depression.
Okay.
It was my cousin, and that was 20 years ago, but she's feeling good now. And I saw her, I met her like 2 weeks ago, and she's feeling good now. But as far as I know, this is she needs to take some like medical treatments, right? Because it's like a physical disease, and she needs to take some pills. And what do you think, except from the physical skills, and she also taking some like mental therapies.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think the tourism can do in the area better than the mental therapies?
Okay, I'm not too much expert on depression. I'm more the expert on this side of the dementia part. However, this could be one of those non-pharmaceutical therapy that can support the life of the people and helping them to have a full life. So leisure, more in general, doing the things that we like, could be an opportunity to have relaxation, enjoyment, and so on. So this is how they can help the pharmaceutical support. Because of course, in some severe situation like depression, you cannot get off the pills very easily or the mental support. But this could be another thing that the people can enjoy, enable them to stay together with the others, which is very important. Remember that in the future, one of the biggest diseases is going to be the loneliness. And so you can get this form of opportunities. So leisure, opportunities to enjoy. It's very important. So sorry, I am not very specific on depression, so I couldn't go too much in depth, but this is one aspect. It helps a lot people to have the chance to share and enjoy.
Yes, it is specific on tourism. What tourism can bring to us. It makes us make the self to develop ourselves from to get ourselves involved in others, in the nature or in other people, and that's what tourism can do.
Yeah, I could have also answered with this question. How do you feel when you are a tourist? Why do you like it? It's exactly the same. So this type of enjoyment. So the disease doesn't take it away from you.
Thank you very much.
So I hope I answered. Anybody else? Any questions? So maybe you are lucky and you can also give the second one. Anybody in the Q&A? Yes.
So I'm wondering, do business like this, also business like yours, do they suffer from greater risk or liability compared to other kind of tourism business? And if not, does it mean it got some encouraging policy from the government, or is it just covered by the insurance system?
Okay, very good question. The degree of liabilities is for the tour operator and travel agency probably much higher than the normal one. But for the hotels that, for example, are hosting the people, this is not, because the person liable is the caregiver, or eventually, if they go without the caregiver, the organization that we have seen. Of course, the hotels are not legally bounded if something happens. What could be is the fact that you needed to be responsive, not for the legal side, for the ethical side. I had actually a student once asking me this, but I don't care because I'm not liable, so why I needed to care about this? So it was very strong, I have to tell you, because this student was very cynical. And it was right, technically speaking, you're not liable if you are an hotel It's like the kids. There are also the parents in that case, and here there are the caregivers. Then there might be some differences according to the country, so it's a more general. But of course you have an ethical concern. If somebody gets lost, It's not your fault. It's probably the fault of somebody that didn't pay too much attention to them. I'm not talking about the tour operator, I'm talking about the hotel. So there is a caregiver, the caregiver loses it. But then you feel guilty, you want to help, no? So that was one of the comments of my students, but I was thinking, yes, okay, but you're also a person, you're not just a business, you're not a machine. So this is one aspect. Government help, that was the second one, get support, yes. Again, it's not easy to give you an answer here because it really depends on the country. In Switzerland, they support the holiday and they pay part of the holiday for the family that goes on a holiday. Some cases it would be the insurance, in some other cases you have to pay yourself. So this is a really complicated situation. In Switzerland, for example, they pay part of it because it's inside their health system as a scheme. So Alzheimer Ticino or Alzheimer Switzerland can benefit out of it, and so it's a very good situation. In Italy, holidays so far, you cannot get some support. Maybe some charity can help, that's of course. They do, for example, in Tuscany, which is a region in Italy, they offer museum therapy, let's say, so people can go and visit the museum, and this is also given by the government. So there is such a lot of variability, especially in health, that's a mess, because there are public systems, there are insurance systems, and so on and so forth. So it really depends on the situation and how much the government wants to invest in it. So you had answer from you, a question for it, of course this. Do you want this or the other?
I have the right one.
I love that. No question for you, Professor. But
I want this.
That's also it's nice. I just want to share one of my opinion with you.
Yes, sir, of course.
Yes, I think maybe the easiest way to treat this kind of people is just to treat them as our kids. Because in our Chinese, there is a saying, 老小孩. That means that the old people are just as a kid, or the people with dementia disease are just like a case. If we are tolerant enough and we are kind enough to treat our kids, I think all these kind of people can be treated friendly in the society.
Okay, I would say partially yes. Because one thing that makes the difference between a kid and them is that they have a history of life. So what will be important is also to recognize this. So treat them, I think it's written here. It was, no, it's in here. No, there is not, but the point here not to make the people look like a kid, because they have their dignity that has been grown through time. That's the real difference between the two. Then of course there is something in common, but there is always a life in between. One of the biggest mistakes that the nurses do when they go to the elderly home is to treat them really like, oh, poor kind, poor people, la, la, la. They talk like this. Now I don't know what this. Oh, in Italian we say nonno, which is grandpa. You don't call somebody that maybe is a lawyer, grandpa, come here and let's go. Because they tend to do it. That's what the sensibility we need to change. Then of course there are a lot of opportunities to make some comparison. But remember, there is the life in between. And we don't want to think about you. We don't want that somebody, when we get older, treated like as kid. Then some of the elements could be common, but be careful on this, because this is really something that the psychologist would say, never do it, although there are similarities. Very often they also give games like kids to the people with the disease. It's another mistake, because you need to take into consideration a few other elements before you can treat them exactly as the kids. And you cannot actually treat them as kids, because you always have to remember there is the life in between. So if you wanted to give them some activity to give them some entertainment, consider adult entertainment simplified, but not kids entertainment, because it's different.
Yes, so. But I think the tolerance and the hospitality are the same.
Yes, on that side I would say yes. The only difference is, remember that it's not a grandpa, he's a lawyer or whatever. So thank you. But it's a very, very interesting comment that you made, because it's one of the, yes, as you said, it's common sense. I also made it before the comparison. And it's interesting to get into this direction. It's the only thing that they ask, but good comment. Very good comments. Any other opinions? And then I think I can continue forever. So if you can stay forever, I can stay.
Oh, dear Professor, thanks for showing the sample hotel, scan it.
Yes.
Yeah, with its capability of accessibility. But I'm wondering, if in Switzerland or Italy, do their tourism organizations of the role, government, have some law or kind of regulations to set a certain percentage level of all the major hotels in the scenic spots or the downtown area? You have to adapt to all types of people in your hotel. I just want to know some law policy.
The answer is yes. There is a European law. Yes, European Union, that later on each of the countries in Europe had to accept, and they have created their own laws for the disability aspect. Slightly different application in the European Union, but they have all similar regulation to implement, because in the European Union we decided that the European Union decided a few elements, so now we have to rule also the countries in between. In Switzerland, they are not part of the European Union. They have some also laws about it. So yes, there is some legal requirements in many areas. There is the Disability Act, for example, in the US. So yes, there is somebody that has taken into consideration these elements, and that's why very often you go to places and you must have the toilet for people with disabilities. And if you don't have it for some reason, it's because you have been accepted. They have made an exception for you. Because maybe it's an old building, let's take this example, and you cannot build it, and so they give you an exception. But in the reality, the most of the business must have. The numbers depend on the size, depends on many different things, so I cannot go so much in depth, and the different countries are different. But there are rules. Our ability would be to go above and beyond, but already meeting them, it's already good. So thank you for all your questions. They were all very interesting, very sensible also, from depression to the case of whether we could actually have the same sensitivity as we do as kids, for example. I don't remember yours, but of course it was good because I answered, but now I'm getting old. Oh, sorry, I forgot one thing. Remember one thing that is important. If people are getting old and doctors simply tell us, this person is getting old, it's normal that this person is losing memory, don't trust them. Tell them, let's go more in depth, please, because probably there is something much more than just getting old. Dementia is not normal aging. Please do it, because otherwise you're going to have difficulties at home or whatever, because you don't have a diagnosis and you don't have some pills, because some pills help. They cannot stop, they slow down, but they can also help. So it's good to have a diagnosis. Thank you.
So this is the end of our seminar. Thank you for